We know that consistent effort applied over long time frames is what gets results. But what if there were a way to hijack the system? Well, there is. And in this video, I'm going to break it down. It's called the sprint method, and it's a powerful way to destroy poor work habits like procrastination, overthinking, analysis paralysis, to dial up your focus and your intensity, and to finish projects that matter to you. Now, before we dive in, if you want to apply the sprint method in what I think is the best way possible, then I encourage you to join Work Sprint. There's a link in the description below. Work Sprint is a 14-day cohort where everybody gets together into a community. We all have individual projects and goals that we're focusing on, and there's daily accountability. So everyone checks in each day with their plan, what they're going to focus on, and then checks it off at the end of the day. If you're watching this before the start of June, there are likely some early bird spots left, so you can get 50% off the next cohort. So again, check out the link below to learn more and sign up. So why should you do a sprint? What is the benefit? Why not just keep working as you usually do? First of all, a sprint is a powerful way to kick yourself out of a procrastination loop. Maybe you've got a project that you've been putting off for months, or you've started it, but you really haven't put that much work in and it's just kind of sitting on the back burner. Or maybe you're just tired of getting to the end of the day and feeling dissatisfied with your output. Or maybe you've been unable to make a decision about what to work on. You know you just need to stop thinking and stop brainstorming and stop planning and do something. Well, if that's you, then a sprint is a good way to kick yourself out of that. And the beauty of a sprint is that it's only a 2-week commitment. The worst case scenario, like the worst outcome, is that you spend 2 weeks hyper-focusing on a project and that project's not optimal, or it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get the results that you expect. But even in that scenario, even in that case, you have still spent 2 weeks refining your focus ability, being consistent, building momentum, building confidence, which will carry on and carry through after you have done the 2-week sprint. And the upside potential is immeasurable. It's limitless. We had someone during the last work sprint who finally launched a business that he had an idea for 10 years ago, and he just kind of put it in the for later basket. So that's an example of what can happen when you commit yourself to a 2-week period of intense focus. Here's how it works. You start with a single goal that's clearly defined. You operate on a power schedule. You need real accountability. You dial up your focus. You have intense focus. No distractions. That includes micro distractions and macro distractions, which I'll explain in a moment. And then you do it for 2 weeks. So let's break down each of these in more detail so you can really understand how to apply them. First, you want that single goal that's clearly defined. A sprint works best when you have one project or one singular focus. Again, it's only 2 weeks, so you can really only pick one decent sized project to work on. During my last sprint, my goal was to create 7 YouTube videos in the time frame. That included writing, editing, finalizing, and it's different types of work, but it all aligns under that same goal, which is to make 7 YouTube videos. Whatever your project or goal is, it must be clearly defined. For example, if you say to yourself, well, I'm gonna write a bunch of stuff for my blog or for my newsletter over the 2 weeks. That's too vague. It won't work because a bunch of stuff can mean anything. And what you'll find is that it will be easier to procrastinate when the going gets tough because you can just move the goalposts however you like. You haven't defined a measurable outcome. But if you said to yourself, I'm going to write 4 newsletter issues or 4 blog articles in my 2 weeks, well, that's specific and it can be measured, right? Like you can't find the loopholes, you can't move the goalposts there, you have to do it. What I'm trying to say is that the clearer your goal and the more defined it is, the less excuses you have to avoid doing the work. You've outlined what you need to do, so now you just need to do it. You also want to push yourself as well, because this is a sprint. It's not like a normal 2 weeks of your life. You should have an intensity and you should have a goal that you wouldn't be able to sustain every single week for a whole year. It should be hard to achieve in the 14-day, in the 2-week time frame. A good rule of thumb here is that it should be at least a month's worth of normal work. So let's say you're a developer who normally ships 2 features a month. Well, compress that into 2 weeks and do 2 features during your 2-week sprint. I encourage you not to think small here because it is amazing what you can accomplish in a 2-week time frame when you apply yourself and when you focus with intensity. Worst case scenario, you set a difficult goal and you fall short, but you still got way more done than you would have got done otherwise. The second component of doing a sprint is the power schedule. Time management is crucial during a sprint and you want to be conscious of it. Inside Work Sprint, we do a minimum of 90 minutes of deep work per day, which is a good number because it's enough time to make significant progress on your project, but it's a short enough period of time that most people who are working, say, a 9-to-5 job can still get those hours in, or still get the 90 minutes in outside their normal work hours. But the power schedule is about orienting your day, but the power schedule is about mapping and shaping your day around the most important deep work, at least as much as you can. I know that, a lot of people have kids and any hope of like a standardized routine is just gonna go out the window. But as much as you can, you want to orient your day around that deep work. I'm a morning person, so I like to get my deep work done in the morning, like a solid 3 to 4 hour block. And that is the cornerstone of my day. Everything else revolves around that. If I delay that deep work for too long in my schedule, I just won't get to it, or I'll procrastinate, or I won't get as much in. And so you want to think to yourself, okay, I've got 2 weeks. This is my goal. This is how much time it's going to take. How do I prioritize that time? How do I fit it into my calendar so that everything else revolves around it? And sometimes it means that you need to make some sacrifices. Maybe you can't socialize as much or at all during the 2 weeks. The second component to the power schedule is scheduling things that support your ability to do the deep work. So I know that if I don't get outside and if I don't exercise and if I don't eat well and if I don't take time for some leisure and some relaxation every day, then I'm not going to consistently be able to do the deep work as well as I could. If I don't have those things in my schedule, at some point I'm going to hit burnout, or I'm going to feel tired, or I'm just not going to feel that good, and it's going to impact my ability to be productive. So first, you want to orient your schedule around the deep work, and second, you want to make sure that you have things in your schedule that support your ability to do the deep work, whether it's that day or over the 2 weeks. Now, the third component is real accountability. When you set a difficult goal for yourself over a short time frame, what happens is the resistance kicks in hard. You find every reason in the book why you can't do what you set out to do. The doubt starts creeping in. Sure, you might feel motivated on day 1, maybe even day 2, but sometime during that first week, you will want to take it easy. You will want to take your foot off the gas pedal. You'll want to maybe change your project or your goal to something easier, or you just want to quit altogether and you start coming up with excuses as to why you should quit. This is why you need accountability. You need other people to see that you're ticking the box every day, that you're doing what you said you were going to do. The simple act of having to check in with someone or a community of people every day helps drive momentum and productivity. This is one of the reasons why Work Sprint is so powerful, because there's a daily check-in process. At the start of the day, you write your goal, you write what you're going to do, and at the end of the day, you confirm it. You confirm completion, and people can see that. Like, you're not doing it alone in hiding. I remember during the last cohort, there was one day, I think it was close to the end, and there was one day where I just felt tired and I didn't feel like doing the work, and I started coming up with all these excuses, but the one thing that made me do deep work that day was the fact that I had to check in, and I didn't want to break the chain of daily deep work that I had done. And so I sat down and I did the work, and it was really good work. That layer of accountability cannot be understated. It is super powerful. Now, the fourth component to the sprint method is intense focus. I've mentioned the power schedule, how you want to orient your day around the deep work. But when it comes to actually doing that deep work, when it comes to doing the work, you want to apply intensity. See, most of the time, we don't operate with much intensity at all. You might sit down to write or code or to work on a project for a few hours, but you're distracted, or you're not pushing yourself to go harder and to go deeper and to go faster. But during a sprint, during that 2-week time frame, you want to dial up the intensity. The hours you work become intense. You're trying to be twice as productive. It almost becomes a game. Like, how intensely focused can I be during the next hour, 2, 3 hours. And what you'll discover when you apply this intensity, when you really push yourself to focus hard, is that first of all, it is tiring. Like, you feel mentally tired at the end of it. But it also feels incredible when you're in flow, when you're in the zone, and when you're working extremely efficiently. Your output is ludicrous and you know it, and it feels so good. To give you an example, I normally write about 1,000 to 2,000 words per hour when I'm engaged in focused deep work. During the last sprint, there were days where I was pumping out like 3,000 words in an hour. It wasn't every day, but quite often I would sit down and I was so intensely focused that I was pumping out 3,000 words an hour. And so that's like a 50% increase in efficiency and productivity just from dialing up that intensity knob. The fifth component is no distractions. Now, when I say no distractions, I'm not just talking about the micro distractions that you face when trying to do deep work. It should be a given that if you're engaged in focused work, your phone is on silent, you can't be distracted by things, notifications aren't popping up on your computer, like you're just focused on the task at hand. I'm more talking about the macro distractions that pop up when you commit to something for 2 weeks, like when you're doing a sprint. Distractions like wanting to change course, wanting to change your goal halfway through a 2-week sprint. This is almost always the wrong move because you lose momentum, and it's almost always a result of the resistance. Because what you're trying to do during a sprint is hard, and so you start to convince yourself that maybe it's the wrong project or it's the wrong goal because it feels hard, and it shouldn't feel hard, right? Like, it should feel easy. At least that's what you tell yourself. If you feel the urge to work on a different project or to change your goal during a 2-week sprint, then schedule another sprint where you can tackle it and then return to the project you're currently working on, even if you don't like it anymore. Because the importance of finishing and the importance of fulfilling your commitment will build the momentum and confidence that you desire. Another distraction is just wanting to quit because it's hard. This is a distraction. Just keep working. Like, it's supposed to be hard. And if you reframe it in your head as like, this 2-week sprint is going to be one of the hardest work periods of my life, but also the most rewarding, then you will stick with it and see it through to the end. And then a very subtle one, but it is an important one, is these intra-sprint distractions where maybe you're spending too long on an unimportant part of your project or goal. Maybe you're spending too long in the planning phase or the research phase, and it just ends up being sophisticated procrastination. Like, you're not working on the thing that will actually move the needle. And finally, a sprint is 2 weeks. It is the perfect time frame because if you're doing a minimum of say 90 minutes of deep work per day, that's 21 hours of focused work, which may sound like a small amount, but it's really not. That's more than enough time to finish a small project or to make decent progress on a big one. And it's a period of time where you can really dial up that intensity that I mentioned, that intense focus. It is hard to maintain that intensity for weeks and months on end, but if it's just 2 weeks, you can absolutely do it. And like I also mentioned at the start, it's a short enough period of time where there's little to no downside. Work on a project that goes nowhere, it's all good. Just 2 weeks of your life. It's not 6 months, but the potential upside is immeasurable because there's a significant chance that you work on something that vastly improves your life, your business, or your career. And you build momentum that carries on after the sprint. Now it's over to you. Will you do a sprint? You can follow this sprint method by yourself. I've outlined it for you in this video, but you do need accountability. So if you're gonna do it by yourself, make sure that you find someone who can hold you accountable. Ideally, they are doing it with you. Or like I said, you can join WorkSprint, check out the link below and sign up. I'd love to see you inside. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.